I'm so sorry. I should have started the recording while I was introducing Thea, but
That's okay.
yeah, over to you.
Would you like for me to get started?
Yes, please, we can start.
Okay. We are here today to talk about using personality to craft communication. So, my name is Thea Soren. I am the president of the Tampa Bay IIBA chapter. I'm also the vice president of career and professional development, which means it's my job to help everybody that comes to me. I am the founder of the BA Force Multipliers. I am one of the authors of the Business Analysis Body of Knowledge version 3 and one of the authors of Business Analysis Bridging the Gap Between Industries. If you'd like to reach out to me, LinkedIn is the best way. Today, as I said, we're going to be talking about using personality to craft communication. In today's very diverse workplace worldwide, I found that using the Myers-Briggs type indicator to identify my personality and then the personality of those around me, craft communication to be more effective, foster better teamwork, and achieving organizational goals. But for you, what I want is I want you to have an enhanced awareness of different personality types. I want you to have practical tools and techniques for improving communication, and I want to give you strategies for building stronger, more effective personal relationships. So today, I want to know if you've taken the Myers-Briggs and what your MBPTI is. Then I'm going to talk about your toolkit, what you naturally have. I'm going to talk a little bit about emotional intelligence. You might have seen that in a few BA things. We're going to talk about the different personality tests that are currently being trendy on the market. And then we're going to go into the Myers-Briggs Personality Type Indicator. Then we're going to talk about how to craft your own communication. So, who has taken their own Myers-Briggs? Does anybody know yours?
I did take, but I am kind of in mid of everything.
You're middle of everything. Okay, so everything I say is going to apply to you then. Okay. So whenever you first have a personality, whenever you first start, you've got this list of these blocks and they fit into your communication styles very, very well. However, not everybody has the same blocks, the same shapes, the same holes. And you have to be able to talk to people the way they think, the way they take in information, the way they make decisions and such. So what we're going to start with is emotional intelligence. You got to know yourself. And the Myers-Briggs is a really good way to start that. Now, before we get started with the Myers-Briggs, I'm going to tell you that there's not a personality test in the world that's going to be 100% accurate. There's not one that's going to be accurate if you take it now and in 5 years it's going to be the same because you change. You change a little bit. So you have to be aware and keep making decisions. So let's go into EQ. EQ is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions, as well as the emotions of others. You have to manage them. You don't necessarily have to control them. Be aware. It involves self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. Empathy is what business analysis is all about. And social skills is what we use to be able to communicate with our diverse groups. We want you to understand your own personality. We want you to identify your strengths and weaknesses, understand how you react to different situations, develop strategies to manage your emotions effectively, and that relate to others with greater ease. That is truly the goal of all of this. So the Myers-Briggs personality type has 16 different personality combinations. It is complicated. There are others on the market. This one is called DISC. This one is called Colors. This one is called the Big Five. These are just a few of those that are being used around the world for different organizations. And I've noticed that some companies, they're like, hey, 2 years ago, we took this one. Now we're going to take this new one. And then other companies are not interested in it at all. I actually had a company say, we feel like that's a bunch of voodoo. So they're not interested, but that's fine. So we're going to focus on the Myers-Briggs today because that's the one I know. Now, the Myers-Briggs identifies individual psychological preferences. Your type represents your natural preferences, but your development of all this is based upon your environment, your influences, your how you feel today. So it has some variability. So let's go to history. Carl Jung, he is a um, you know his name if you've ever taken any psychology or any sociology. In 1921, over 100 years ago, he came up with some categories to put people in. There's two core attitudes, extroversion and introversion. Almost everyone has heard of those. And then there are four basic functions, creating 8 primary personality types. Now, in 1962, 20, 30, 40 years later, Catherine and Isabel came together. That's a mother-daughter team, and they took what he had created and they added a few things and turned it into 16 personality types. Their goal was just to make it more accessible for people to understand. The real purpose is to improve people's interactions with others. So in over the 100 years, a lot of improvements have been made. A lot of things have been proposed. Now, you remember when Agile first came out in about 20 years ago? It was the brand new thing. Everybody was excited about it. People tried it. Some people did it well. Some people did it poorly. And you are now hearing people say Agile is dead. Well, I've heard the same thing about personality tests. It's like that has no good. I found it personally to have good and help me to relate to other people. So I'm going to convey to you what I've been able to use effectively. So as you take your personality test, you get a scale. And the scale is, there's not one side that's better than the other. It's not left is bad and right is good, or top, none of that. It's just a scale. And if you look at it, it's basically a mix of the two personality types. Almost 100% on each side, and then in the middle, there's about 50-50. So you have a mix of 50-50 of the two different sides. If you are closer to one side than the other, it's more of a 70-30, something like that. So for my own understanding, I created this. It basically identifies what your mix is. If you're in the very middle, you're about a 50-50. If you're closer to the outsides, you're more of a 10-90. It doesn't mean that you are extreme in only one of those things. You have a little bit of the other, but you're mostly this. So whenever I got my personality type from my latest test, I am an ENFP. This doesn't mean I am only on those extremes. In fact, this is what my scale looks like. You can see I'm got a mix of everything in here. It's not one or the other. And so here are the boxes. In the judging and prospecting, I'm 51% prospecting, which is just pretty much in the middle. In feeling, I'm over here in the second quadrant. In intuitive, I'm in the second quadrant. And extroverted, I'm pretty extreme. And so that's my mix. So that's how they got the ENFP, but I don't want you to think it's exclusively the one that it gave you. You need to know where you are in your mix. Okay, do I have any questions so far?
Good.
Okay, we're good. Let's go. The Myers-Briggs is made up of 4 categories. As I said, there's not one that's better than the other. With interaction in the world, you've got introverts, extroverts, absorption of information, you've got intuitives and sensors, and they use an N for this because they already we're using an I here. So you got N and S. Decision making, you got feelers and thinkers, and then organization, you got judges and perceivers. This seems complicated because it is. There's a lot to this. So I'm going to break it down. I'm going to give you a lot of information. What I'd like for you to do is, if you've done your Myers-Briggs, think about, does this apply to me? And does the one that it identified for me apply to me 100%, or is it mostly that? There are pros and cons, strengths and weaknesses with every single one of these. Knowing your weaknesses, though, gives you the ability to strengthen that. So let's go on to the first one, interactions with the world. With introverts and extroverts, you know this. You start out your day with a certain amount of energy. Your energy comes from your own reserve. The way that the reserve is filled is what's different between introverts and extroverts. Extroverts, we want to be around people. So much so that if you give us a solo job, we will figure out a reason to have to go talk to somebody about it. We need to be around people. We can do things by ourselves for a while, but it's not, something you can sustain for days. Introverts, on the other hand, they prefer not to be around so many people. They get their energy from being away from people, and they kind of like to have private time. That's just fine. But the strength of extroverts is that we talk a lot. We actually think out loud. We don't stop to think about, ponder, what should we think first, and then say it. We just start talking. If you ask a group of people that have a mix of introverts and extroverts in question, the extroverts will start talking before the introverts have had a chance to think through it. The extroverts will also come to the point where they go, you know what? I just talked for 5 minutes about an idea and it's a stupid idea. Forget I ever said that. Because we don't think first, we talk first. So if you need fast ideas just to, bounce ideas around the room, extroverts are great. However, introverts are sitting there thinking through what they need to say, not only why they need to say it, but they think deeply, much more deeply than extroverts typically do. And they come up with better ideas. There are many, many introverts that are better leaders than extroverts. So don't make people feel like they can't lead or they don't have a voice because they don't be the first person to speak up. Okay, we've got another one here. Awesome. So, introverts and extroverts. The way to identify an introvert typically is they ponder. You ask them a question, typically, not everyone, but typically they'll look down and start thinking about the answer.
Thea, we have a question.
Yes, we do. What is your question?
Hi,
Please.
thank you very much. So I would say that in categorizing myself, I'm more of an introvert than an extrovert, right? And
Okay.
I want to ask, how do you think that I can manage this side of mine in a fast-paced environment? Because sometimes I'm in a meeting, let's say I'm the business analyst on a project, and everybody is saying this and that. I'm just trying to like put everything together and make it make sense. And and they're like, "Oh, are you not going to speak? Are you not going to talk? Do you not have anything to say? Is this how you're going to manage the project?" And sometimes that gives me panic attacks. So it feels like I don't know what I'm doing. Meanwhile, I'm just like in my head trying to, you know, gather what everybody's saying, match things together, and so on and so forth. So how do you think I can manage this side of mine, and not make it look like I don't know what I'm doing?
I fully understand what you're asking, and it's a very absolute valid point. Um, People demanding that you jump in first is not reasonable for you. That's not the way you're built. You are built to ponder and think first. So what you have to do is set expectations that, okay, tomorrow we're going to talk about these 5 things, set out your agenda, identify the things, but that gives you an opportunity to ponder, how is it I want to present these 5 things? What is the information I want to present, the information I need from them, and get all of that set up ahead of time so that whenever you go into the meeting, you know exactly what you want to say, that you've had your opportunity to structure it in your own mind. And
Mm.
whenever people ask you questions, it's like, aren't you going to say, you know what? I think I want to do some reflection on that, because, make it, you got to market yourself a little bit. I'm going to do some reflection on that because I want to give you a very thorough answer, and I will be ready to give you that answer tomorrow. It's important that you tell them when you're going to give them the answer, because if you don't, it sounds like you're just pushing it off. But if you give them, during our status meeting in the morning, I'll have my thoughts together about that. Does that sound
Right.
like it would work?
Yeah, yeah, it does. Thank you very much.
I think
Now I
Yeah.
want to,
it's
yes,
also
go ahead.
important to be like, we're not experts in that meeting, so you don't need to have all the answers, right? So like, I mean, from my experience as a BA, being let's say in a first kickoff meeting or something that my project manager has given me or my manager has given me, it's like, James, here's a one-liner, figure it out. So I suppose your skills as a BA by doing your own kind of elicitation or research to ask the right questions, but not feel like you need to know everything like at the start, because you're going to learn as you go, right? And as you learn more information, then that helps you more. So you might have more and more sessions, but never feel like you have to be the one. You're facilitating the session, but you're getting the right people in the session to ask the right questions. But if you can't, let's say they're talking about something and you're like, oh God, I don't know what that is, or that's too complicated, or that sounds technical, just jot it down and be like, okay, I'm going to take that away. And kind of like what Tia said, I'm going to take it away, reflect on it, and then I'll come back with my kind of understanding of it, because it's all important to have a shared understanding. And I've been in situations before where technical terms have been thrown around and everyone was like, oh, James, you're supposed to know this. You're in the company X amount of time. And I'm like, well, if you can't explain it to me, then how am I supposed to understand it? So I think it's like trial and error, but never feel like you need to be the expert in the call. That's my main points.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
Lalita, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I have the same question. How do I resolve this situation as ambivert? Because at times I feel like, okay, I can connect with the stakeholders, but then sometimes it's like, as a BA, we do have a lot of meetings. But by the end of the day, I'm so exhausted that I'm not putting my 100% in the meetings. So how do I cope up with that as ambivert?
Well, an ambivert really is an introvert that can can appear to be an extrovert whenever they need to be. So you have the same thing. Here's some one-liners y'all can use. Let me take away this information I've gathered and we'll discuss it more deeply tomorrow. I've got some thoughts I want to put down on paper. I've got a few people I'd like to check in with to be sure we need their perspectives. I want to be sure this aligns with someone else's, the product owner, the goal of the project. I want to be sure this aligns with them, and then so that we're all aiming for the same goal. So you can use those as give me a few minutes, guys, and put people off. But I think it's very important that you say, we'll talk about this more tomorrow at this meeting, and they know exactly what to be aiming for and expecting. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. We're going to go deeper. Ready? Okay. Next is the intuitives and sensors. Now, intuitives prefer to focus on possibilities and big pictures. These are the guys that say, I have a vision. They really do see this vision. It's a real thing to them. They like value. They like creative solutions. On the other hand, sensors are very realistic people. They want the data. They want, we have 5 quarters of results and we can trend based upon those results. They want it that way. So if you are an intuitive and you have this great big idea and you're going to be talking to somebody who's a strong sensor, you got to present it in a way that they understand it. They will get frustrated if you say, I've got this big idea, but I don't have any data for you. They need you to go get the data. They need you to speak in their language. It's almost like they're speaking a foreign language. You got to learn their language to speak to them, get the blocks the way they need them to be able to present your information to them, because the goal of communication is to convey the idea in a way that they can understand it. So you got to figure out how they best understand it. If you're a sensor and you like facts and details and your boss is an intuitive, and you want to go in and say, I can prove that my idea will work because I've got all this stuff, you're going to have to change your language. Even though all this stuff may seal the deal, you've got to give it to them initially in a way that they understand. Give them the big picture, give them the concepts and the goals and the values that they understand. This is innovative. Use their language so that you can speak to them in their language. Okay. Feelers. Oh, I'm sorry. I have put all that on the next slide. So sorry. So here's the scenario: a meeting to discuss a new project. Intuitives may focus on the overall vision, asking questions about how does it align with the company's long-term goals, potential challenges. I mean, the big high-level stuff. Sensors are going to be down in the details. So if you're one talking to the other, you've got to speak in their language. Does that make sense? And I'm going to tell you that for this one and the next one, using the term guideposts and milestone is very impactful for both groups, because the intuitives understand the concept of guidepost or milestone. The sensors go, okay, in Q3, we will hit the guidepost of this amount. I mean, it becomes a very concrete thing for them. Intuitives it's very conceptual. So it gives them some kind of security. Okay, for feelers and thinkers. Feelers are empathetic. They are the guys that they kind of intuitively know what's going on. These guys are great politicians. They're great marketers. They can read a room and respond like a chameleon. They can see what's going on. You know, they can say, I can see that you're uncomfortable with this idea. And everybody else is going, how did you get that? Because they know, okay? Thinkers, on the other hand, they often confront conflicts directly when they notice the external signals. Thinkers will go, James and I were in a meeting this morning and I said, I want to talk about the elephant in the room. Feelers wouldn't do that. Feelers are like, no, we got to keep everything good. Everything's got to be good. Thinkers are like, we need to address this so that we can get it out of the way. Both have good qualities. Both have strengths and weaknesses. You need to understand where you are. And if you're working with someone, for instance, let's say you're going into a client meeting and you got to handle this client with kid gloves. You might not want to take a thinker with you. They might be, in their face saying the things that the client doesn't necessarily want to hear. You got to set the relationship up before you bring in the data guys or whatever. So thinkers, they like the logic, they like the facts. They are great project managers. Feelers, scrum masters, make a good team. Okay, judgers and perceivers. I love this one. I gave y'all a graphic. Look at this graphic. See these people in the museum. Well, you see this guy right here? He has systematically gone from picture to picture, reading every single caption, checking the brush strokes, looking at how they framed it, checking the lighting. He is very systematic through the whole thing. He's going to go down the left wall and then come back up the right wall. He has a plan. He probably has a time schedule. And he is a judger. Judgers, they like to be organized and they follow most rules. Now, this guy right here, he's just meandering through, looking at anything. If they were planning this trip together, the judger would be very frustrated with the perceiver. He's just meandering through. It's chaos. But that's the way they think, okay? So judgers and perceivers are a little bit different. Perceivers like to keep their options open, not set a schedule. If you wanted to go on vacation with these two groups together, they would end up on two different vacations because they would make each other crazy. Here's the deal though. If you are wanting to present a project proposal, the judger is going to want the rules. They're going to want the Gantt chart. They're going to want the schedule. They're going to want the budget. They're going to want the goals and the rules. That's what they're focused on. You don't bring that to them, they're not going to be able to process what you have. Perceivers, on the other hand, they either forget or they're indifferent to the rules. They delay decisions as long as possible because they enjoy the generation of ideas and the energy that comes from initiating a project. They're not the best project finishers, but they're great project initiators, okay? You have something that you have due from a perceiver. You need them to give it to you by 5 o'clock on Friday at the close of business because you want to work on it over the weekend. I encourage you, I don't care if they're a judge or a perceiver, they'll show you which one they are. I don't care which one they are though. Always say this, the reason I need it at that time is I'm going to work on it beginning at 6 o'clock with a group of people. Give them the reason to meet the deadline. Give them the reason to follow the rule. That way you don't have to wonder, are they a judge or a perceiver? Judges kind of like to test is this rule still in force? Do we still need this rule? Receivers will always test it every single time. Whichever one you are, understand that about yourself, but also watch other people and see what is important to them and how they behave. Now, this distribution is from the United States because this is where the study was taken, but I'm going to assume, which, we shouldn't do, but I'm going to assume it's worldwide distribution. Okay, should be pretty much the same, I think. So you can see that depending on which one you are, let's see. Where are we? James, do you know what your Myers-Briggs is? Can you drop it in the chat? If you know it, that's okay. If you don't, that's okay.
I haven't a clue.
Okay. Well, here's the deal. If you look at this, you'll notice that there are some groups that there's a whole bunch of us. The ISFJs, the ISTJs, the ESFJs. You can see they go into these outer rings. So you're going to naturally have experience with people of this personality. And you're going to learn this, you're going to gain the strength of working with people of these personalities because there's lots of us. The people that there's not a whole lot of, not only is it a little more challenging to deal with them because they think differently than you're familiar with, but their strengths, there's fewer of them. And so for those people that have those strengths, they're in higher demand. So there's pros and cons to being in either group. Okay, now we talked about the individual letters throughout the Myers-Briggs, but then they put them in combos, guys. This is the SJs. You see it's sensing here and judging here. The SJs have some interesting qualities. They're practical, their attention to detail, they have good planning, they have great structure, organization, problem solving, creativity, they are perceptive. And you'll notice here, I've put it down here, here's a typical job that somebody might have if they have this combination. And this is the nickname that they've created for that. So this person, the ESTJ, they're a supervisor. Project managers very often are this. ESFJ, you notice is just feeling and thinking. That's the only difference here. Teachers, they're supportive, responsible, social. Nurses, accountants, these are building blocks of our culture. These are people we need, and they have very, very different strengths than anybody else. The idealist, these are the NFs. You see NF right here in the middle. You've got healer, champion, counselor, teacher. These are the writers, public relations specialists, professors, and human resource managers. These folks have a whole different strength set, and we need them. I would encourage you that the concept of diversity shouldn't be based upon choices. It should be based upon how people think and how they make decisions. Because you don't want a group of people to make decisions and they're all engineers, or you don't want a group of people to make decisions and they're all mechanics or creatives. I mean, you need a mix to be able to make a good balanced decision. The artisans, these are the SFs. I'm sorry, the SPs. S here and P here. Did you have something, Lolita?
Yeah, I did the test again and I am ISFP.
Ah, well, look, it's you. Okay, well, you are one of the composers and an artist. Are you crafty? Do you do art?
I don't. Not at all.
Then I'm going to say that your creative, sensing, and easygoing, you express through your business, your corporate, the way that you deal with people, the way that you lead people into new ideas. It's a different kind of artistry.
Maybe. Possible.
Okay.
James can let us know better because he's president of our chapter.
It's very possible. Okay, let's move forward. Oh, one thing I want to say about this one is these are people are extremely observant and they're highly realistic and they know how to have fun. They have tactics, they're adaptable, they have a gift for negotiation, they're bold, which is a strength. They're gifted with improvisation and they can merge with their environment because they're so observant. They can they understand how to behave in different environments. Okay, next one, intuitive thinkers. This is the NJs. These folks are like the executives, the scientists, software developer, and entrepreneur. You know, that sounds like they're very, very different, but you can see that they're all strategic, they're outgoing, they're resourceful. They have so many good strengths that we need in our communities, in our cultures. Intuitives like to take in the big picture, but they also like to make decisions based on logic. So that's a really cool combination. You need these folks in your groups. Okay, so here is the land of the personalities. No matter where you are, there's people in your area, in your country, that have the same thoughts, same strengths. And then there are people that live other places. So let's say you live here. You live in the logical, focused, theoretical area. And then you got to talk to somebody else who lives right here. It's going to be easy for you, right? You both speak the same language. You have the same choices about how you come to conclusions, how you bring in information, the things you enjoy doing. It's going to be easy for you. So let's look at, what if you have to talk to somebody from over here? These people are caring, reserved, and perceptive. And so you have to just kind of meld your communication presentation style, the way that you present, document your information, so that you can talk to them where they are. And then you got to talk to somebody over here. It's going to be chaos, I'm telling you. The reason for that is you're all logical and focused and theoretical, and they are empathetic, responsive, and focused, but they're an extrovert. They're going to interrupt you. They have almost exactly the opposite on everything, but it doesn't mean that they don't have value or they can't add value to your life. You just have to learn how to communicate with them in the way they understand it. And if they have emotional intelligence, they'll work on learning to communicate with you in the way you understand it. Then you've got someone down here that's right in the middle of both of you. It's like, okay, they think a little bit differently. But I really think that thinking of people as coming from different countries, the country of, you know, it's a really great way to say, okay, whenever I travel there, I need to know their customs and their traditions and their language. Now, I want to say one thing about personalities. I had someone in a conference say, I hate personality tests because somebody finds out that I am these 4 letters and they think that's all there is to learn about me. They just treat me like I am those 4 letters and nothing else. They don't know anything about my experiences. They don't know anything about my preferences. They don't know anything else, and they stop learning because they just take the personality test and that's all. I encourage you to understand that this is just one aspect. This is one view of a plane across personality. There are experiences, there are where they are with their Maslow's theory of hierarchy. Are they living in survival mode right now? They're going to act very differently than if they're up above survival. They're going to act very differently if they've been through an abusive relationship. They're going to act very differently if they're currently in a struggle season. There's so much more to know about people. And the way that you identify people as Myers-Briggs, once you understand the different categories, is not necessarily by saying, hey, take these 50 questions and tell me what your result is, because that's kind of abrupt. I do know teams that they do that. Let's learn about each other. It just opens the door to conversation. However, you can't always do that. So the way to do it is you observe their behavior. One of these, they wanted to get details and facts. Well, from our stakeholder analysis that when people come in and they are very detailed and fact oriented, you're going to document that in your personal stakeholder analysis. This is what they need. If they were to say, I'm very concerned about this specific risk and how it's going to impact my project. You're going to note that in your stakeholder analysis and treat that the same way. So how people behave, what they say, assume it's going to continue, but allow them to flex, allow them to change, but assume it's going to continue and present things in that way. If you want to, if you feel like you can say whenever you're doing your initial stakeholder interviews, whenever I present you information, do you want things at a high level and then have access to the details? Or do you want things in the detailed level initially? Which way do you prefer? You're going to find that it's going to be different with different groups. But I really like to ask questions and give them 3 category options for information, because that way, whenever I'm putting together data, I don't have to put it together 15 different ways. I've got my 3 categories and I can present information in those 3 categories and maybe link from one to the other, from high level down to detail. And that way it's literally only 2 ways of having to construct my information. Now, do I have any questions? I love the comments that are coming in. I see somebody's a protagonist. Let me show you one thing. Those of you who took the test that is in the chat, this is my result. And one of the things I'm not doing this so you know who I am. I want you to see the value in this. You can unlock full results, I think, by paying $9 US. But this tells you so much about yourself, not only your test results, it tells you how assertive you are. It tells you potential career path information. It tells you your strengths and weaknesses. Guess what, guys? I'm routine averse. I want you to know that until I started looking at the Myers-Briggs, I thought my mother's condemnation that I was impulsive was just a character flaw. That's who I was. Impulsive is part of 2 of my different scales. Extroverts are naturally impulsive, and then one of the other ones is impulsive. It's the way I'm made. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's the way I'm made. I need to be aware of it so I don't run over other people. I need to be aware of it so that I kind of sometimes stop and go, you know what? I really want to do that, but let's think through it for a minute. It's a strength that I've had to develop because of weakness that I naturally have. Personal growth. It tells you information about what you need to grow. Again, strengths and weaknesses. I'm commitment averse. I think that is something I maybe have overcome. I'm not so sure. Then it goes into relationships. Authenticity. I know how to say that word. I just can't say it right now. Loyalty, altruism, and emotional intelligence. If you want access to it, that you can pay them extra money to get it. But again, strengths and weaknesses in these areas. Academic and learning styles. You know, we put 30 kids in a classroom, and expect them to all learn exactly the same way. And that's not the way we're made. And so we need to know what people's learning styles are. How do they learn? What do they need for inputs? And again, strengths and weaknesses. One of my weaknesses as an extrovert is I overlook details. Extroverts go across a lot of different topics really fast, and we don't get all the details. And we need the introverts in the room to go, wait a minute, you missed this. And we appreciate that, but we need that. And then here's the end of mine. It is $9 to unlock full results. I'm not telling you you need to go do this service. This is one of the services that they provide information free initially, but I wanted you to have the opportunity to see the extent at which that provides information. Okay. Let's talk about how to use this information at work. You are wherever you are on your Myers-Briggs, think about where that's at, and let's talk about how to talk to somebody from on the other side. Let's see, Lalita, you are strong on feeling. I apologize. I want to tell y'all a really quick story. I had a friend of mine that she was strong in thinking. She was at like 89% thinking. She had just finished her MBA. She was working full time the entire time. She was a career person and she was focused on her future. She took the Myers-Briggs. She was 89% on thinking. 3 years later, she had gotten married. She had a darling 12-month-old who she came into work every day to tell us the new things the baby had done. She took the Myers-Briggs again, and she was more closer to the middle on feeling, because your life experiences will change your personality. So don't sell yourself short on the idea that this is who I am and I'm going to be this way for the rest of my life. You get to be the master of your own ship and realize that things that happen to you, but you get to decide how you respond to them. So, Lalita, let's talk about being strong on feeling and then talking to somebody that is closer to the thinking side. Let me go back to that slide so we can talk about it. Thinking and feeling. There we are.
Yeah, the one that you shared, that it actually changes over time with your experiences. I remember taking one personality test a couple of years back in my organization, and it was on to the feeling side, but my manager was so adamant. She was like, you have to do it again because you are analytical. No way you are on the feeling side, you must be on a thinker side. Like, maybe in office you see me analytical, but personally I am more onto the emotional side.
Well, thinking and feeling are different than the judging and perceiving. Judgers are the detail oriented also. So just because you're on the feeling side doesn't mean you don't have feelings and that you're not analytical. But let's say you're on the thinking side, and that just means that you take things a little you're on the feeling side. You take things a little more focused on how people feel, So for you, if you ever had a situation where you had to tell people that their job was being redundant, it would be very hard for you.
I wouldn't be able to do it, to be honest.
I understand that. That's not going to be your strength. Thinkers, on the other hand, they're like, this is the facts. This is just the way it is. So it's very different. So let's talk about you being a feeler and you need to present information to a thinker. So they really like the logical analysis, objectively having pros and cons. They like honesty and consistency and fairness, but they're not so focused on how people feel. So you have to customize your presentation to the way they think, right?
So I'll include a lot of facts and figures there so that they can understand. But I'll definitely include one pointer as overall picture as well, so that they understand, okay, apart from these facts and figures, it is actually impacting the people's feelings as well.
Oh, absolutely. I think that that's one of your strengths, to be able to say, we're going to keep an eye on everything, not just exclude this because it's not convenient for you.
Yeah.
That's true. Let's see, James, do I have your personality type in here?
Yeah, I'm a protagonist.
Tell me what the letters are so I don't have them all memorized.
ENFJT.
ENFJ. Okay. The very last one is one that they've recently added, and I don't have all the information on that. It's how aggressive you are. So ENFJ, which one of those are you strongest in?
How do I say that? Is that the personality traits part?
The percentages.
Oh, assertive or turbulent?
Okay.
Turbulent.
Okay, go up to the 4 at the top. Which one of those are you strongest in? E, N, F, or J?
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
No, Sorry, it's been a long day. Where am I seeing the Can I share my screen?
Yes, that'd be great.
I'm like a headless chicken here. Okay, you need to enable me to share.
Okay, I've stopped sharing.
Okay.
I don't know that you're enabled, but I've done what I can.
Yeah, I'm sharing now. Should be able to see that.
Okay, very nice. So you are right in the middle of introverted and extroverted. 56% is right in the middle. That means you have strengths and weaknesses of both, almost evenly. You are stronger and intuitive than you are in observant. So let's look at intuitive.
I think if you go on to the
in-
top, it will show you your letters, James.
It's okay. I needed the percentages though.
ENFJ.
So stronger and intuitive, you might focus on the overall vision and potential impact. Whenever you're talking to someone who's sensor though, they really want the specific budget allocations and timelines and deliverables. So you need to speak to them in their language for that. And when you're talking to someone else who's intuitive, if say 3 intuitive people get together to do a project, kind of like we were doing this morning, we need a sensor in there to be able to say, okay, what's the timeline? Who's going to accomplish this? Because intuitives, it's like, hey, we love this concept. It's so exciting. You need a sensor in there. And if you don't have one, it's up to one of you to step up and go, you know what? We're doing this side. We need to do this side too, to be able to move forward. The idea of the achieving these exciting goals that we have set for ourselves is great until we get somebody in there who's a sensor though that says what's our first step? How are we going to do this? What's our milestones? Who's going to be responsible for what? We need a RACI chart. Have we prioritized? I mean, so, and as business analysts, we sometimes have to play that role, right? We have to be sure that somebody in the room is doing the things that's going to mechanically move us forward, not just, are we all on the same page? Do we all have the same spirit? We need that too, but we also need the people who are sensors. So, James, you and I are both E's and F's. Oh no, we are both E and F's. We ENF and I'm right in the middle in the last one. So pretty much we're the same personality as many things. And I want to tell you something I think is exciting. The NF in the middle is what I found most business analysts to be. Not all of us, and it would be bad if we were all the same, but NF in the middle just seems perfect for business analysis. If you're right in the middle of any of them, you can relate to people on both sides, but be aware of your own strengths and weaknesses. As I said, this has been around for almost 100 years. There's a whole lot of research on it. Not all of it's perfect, but I do encourage you, if you found any value in this, to dive deeper in understanding yourself, and then think about how you can best understand the people around you if they're different than you, because there's a translation that you need to do. There is a book that I will drop in the chat that will tell you, it's literally, it's a very dry book, I'm going to warn you, but it's like, if I am this and you are this, these are the things I need to consider to be able to relate to you. These are the things I need to be aware of, like landmines. And it's very useful if you want to get down into that level of detail. But just having the high level understanding of all this is a really good way to make progress in understanding other people. If you can kind of go, he's an introvert. I need to not ask him at spur of the moment, hey, will you present? Or, hey, John, what do you think about this? In the middle of a meeting that he's not had any time to prepare. Several of you have mentioned that you have some introvert tendencies, which is perfectly wonderful. Not what I have, obviously, because I'm still talking. But I want to say this, as an introvert, that for someone to come up to you in a group setting and say, hey guys, I want to tell you all about this person. or they come up to you and they say, hey, I want you to tell everybody about this thing without any warning. I have had introverts tell me that it makes them feel betrayed. It makes them feel like they've been hit by a bus. They makes them not want to participate in group events. It's not what they need. If you want to do something with an introvert, have them present, draw attention to them, or anything else, first ask their permission. Secondly, give them at least 24 hours to ponder the thing that you want them to do. Tell them the reason you want to do it. If, for instance, if I said, James, you've been nominated as a finalist for Volunteer of the Year, and I want to have a big employee gathering and I want to announce it and I want everybody to be able to pat you on the back and shake your hand, you might say, please don't do that. That sounds horrifying. That's not what an extrovert would say, but give the introvert the right to control that, Also, James, you are the SME on this project, and I need this other group to understand what it is, what the timeline is, what the impacts are. Would you mind coming to the meeting on Thursday, or next Thursday, and give us 5 minutes of explanation? And that way you have time to think about it. You have time to get the use to the idea, and prepare what you want to say. You're going in with the focus of conveying information, so you're not so worried about them looking at you, but it's hard. And then you probably need some time to recover. It's like we came from different countries, guys, and each country has a different metabolism and culture and language, and we've got to be able to speak the language and live in the culture and have the habits of the people we're talking to for them to best understand what we're trying to say to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, emotional intelligence means that you learn about yourself first, and you learn how to control yourself, and you learn your strengths and you learn your weaknesses, and you compensate for some of your weaknesses that are important. And then you can best relate to other people. So it's like you're on the map and you have to figure out how to get from where you are to where they are. You can't do that if you don't know where you are on the map. Okay, that's the end of my talk. We are at time. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Thea. It was really interesting session. I am absolutely thrilled to know that how we can improve our communication with the personality types. And absolutely, you mentioned that knowing personality type doesn't mean you know that person. It's
Right.
one part of it. So you have
It's
to know
just
this.
one part. It's
Yeah.
like asking somebody what their favorite hobbies are. You have some way to relate to them in that one area, but we have to
Yeah.
relate to them in every area, how to give them information, how to get them to make decisions, how to get them to keep commitments, everything. So
Yeah,
personality is it. So thank you so much for letting me come.
Thank you so much, Tia. Tia, can you please share that slide deck with me?
I
I would
will.
love to have that one.
I will. I'll also send you the name of that book. I've got to find it first.
Yes,
But
please.
it is not an easy book to read, but it is very cool to be able to say, I am this, they are that, this is what I need to consider. It's kind of like a cheat sheet.
Kind of a
Okay.
reference book.
I'll send it over.
Perfect. Thanks a million, Tia. If you guys have any questions, reach out to Thea over LinkedIn.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'll see y'all next time. Bye, guys.
See you next week.
everyone.
Thanks very
Bye.
much, Thea. Bye.
Bye.